Welcome to Talks with Sheba, the place where real people give real answers on issues plaguing our community today. Hi, I'm your host, Dr. Sheba Holly. Thanks for joining us on this marvelous Monday. We aim to excite, invite, educate, and empower. So let's talk. Let's talk about women of color and depression. The secret is out, but what are we doing about it? Why aren't women of color talking? This is an illness that just debilitates us. And today we have Kristin Mitchell.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
To talk about it. She has gone through it. She knows what's going on. We are not alone. African American, Latino, Asian women. These are women of color that are suffering. But the world knows now. It's okay. Let's talk about it. So Kristin, tell me, what is your passion?
My passion has shifted. And at this point, my passion is really talking to women about depression, uplifting women, helping women to restore themselves, and just really kind of getting the word out there, being transparent with my truths. I find that when I'm transparent, other women feel comfortable opening up. Maybe they weren't comfortable opening up at first, and maybe they weren't comfortable with sharing their stories and speaking about depression because it's so taboo in our community. But I've learned that when you are transparent and you are able to reveal your truths, a lot of people feel comfortable doing the same. And I find that real healing comes in those moments. So I'm very passionate about that.
And I know this, and it started out with your book, and I just went, hold up your book. I love this cover. I just think it's so beautiful because it's like that persona of a princess.
Yes.
And we're all princesses, and we need to remember that. But it's He Wasn't My Daddy, and This is where it all started. So tell us about that book.
Yeah, so He Wasn't My Daddy is a memoir, and I talk about my life. I chronicle you through childhood, adolescence, all the way up into the present. And I really tell a story about how I overcame my depression. You know, when people think about the title of the book, they think that it's a sob story or they think that it's super sad. And while there's moments of sadness that I tell about in the book, it definitely comes full circle. And so, you know, I wound up telling how I was able to overcome depression, how I was able to implement coping skills and seek help and go to therapy and get treatment. All of those things helped me to become the woman that I am today, which I'm extremely proud of. And so there's definitely a lot of nuggets of wisdom. And I call them Kristin's pearls of wisdom in the book. And I go through and I tell this story. And what I wanted to do was inspire women, uplift women, give women hope. Because I know when I was really, really in a bad place, I was very hopeless, right? And I didn't see a means to the end. So I thought that things would always be this way. I didn't see that things would get any better. And so I wanted women to know that, and not just women, but anybody who's suffering with depression. I wanted people to know that, you know, things will get better. Things can get better. It's all about perspective. It's all about utilizing the skills that you learn so that you can live a better and a more fruitful life. So the story is an amazing read. And really there's something in it for everyone, you know, men, so that they can realize how important their roles are in their child's life or their children's lives. Women, those who are battling low self-esteem, those who are battling depression, those who are just kind of lost in life and trying to find their way. So there's pieces of advice in the book for everybody, and I definitely recommend the read.
So what made you say, look, I'm going to write this book and actually say, this isn't a small book. How many pages is this? Oh, my goodness.
About 2 something.
Yeah. So that's a dissertation, sweetheart. That's a dissertation. So, I mean, you really have to be disciplined to do this.
But you know, the funny thing is, and my book consultant, she was amazing. Jessica Tillis. That book was done in about three months. Start to finish. Jessica did the cover, the typesetting, the formatting, and she, you know, she was on my case because I'm like, Jessica, I want to get the book done. And so, you know, we pushed it and it got done. But what happened was I was sick with depression. I was in the hospital. I had been hospitalized about 4 times. The 4th time I was just at my wit's end, because at this point I was off of work for about 2 months. Yeah, for about 2 consecutive months. My leave had ran out. I wasn't getting paid. I'm at home with the mortgage, like, I had just bought a new car before I went to the hospital. So I have this car payment, and I'm just like, Kristin, like, what are you doing, right? So, and I tell people all the time, I went to college, I started teaching, I graduated top of my class from Spelman. I'm like, this is not supposed to be my life, And so I'm at home, I'm trying to figure out like what I'm going to do with my life. So when I'm in the hospital, I'm journaling. And at the back of the book, if you open to the very back, there's a journal. Yes. And I put that in the book because I wanted to make sure that, people my readers had the same outlet that I had. And so that's my gift to my readers. But anyway, I'm in the hospital and I'm journaling. And at the time I was really, really depressed because a relationship ended. And I just couldn't seem to find my way. After the loss of that relationship, it was like a death for me. So I'm like I'm writing all the reasons why I'm depressed and all of the reasons why I'm devastated that this relationship didn't work out. I'm like, he was supposed to love me, and he was supposed to take care of me, and he was supposed to provide for me and protect me, right?
Yeah. And
what I realized when I was writing, I said, Kristin, he's not your daddy, he's your man. Like, you're looking for him to fulfill this role that he's not even supposed to fulfill. And so that's how the title came about. He wasn't my daddy. So I get home. I was in the hospital for about 2 weeks that particular time. And I get home. I'm still off of work. And I'm laying in the bed. And I'm like, you should just write this out in a book. Like, you should just release everything. And then I'm like, you can't write a book. This is the conversation I'm having with myself. And so 10 minutes later, I'm like, no, you really should write a book. And I don't think that was me. I think that was God talking to me.
Absolutely.
And so I'm like, Kristin, you don't know how to write a book. Like, stop it. Right? so later on that night, I'm like, you know what do I have to lose at this point? Write the book. So I started writing the book.
Okay.
And that's how it came about. And it really was so cathartic for me. I mean, really, really therapeutic. And what happened was, as I was going through the process, every broken relationship, family, everything, I spoke to those people. I had conversations with those people to clear things up. Because the book forced me to really tap into those relationships that were broken. And so throughout that process, I was able to get some answers of clarity from my mom, from my brother, from my dad, so it really was a very therapeutic process, one in which I completely enjoyed. When the book came out, it, did better than I thought it would. I mean, I wasn't writing it for sales. I was writing it because I needed to get myself together.
Right.
And then people started buying the book. I started doing, speaking and vending. And so, I mean, it just kind of took on a little life of its own. So I'm really, really proud of the product that I created.
Interesting. And we talk about the fatherless daughters.
Yep.
In the book, where you do. I don't. I didn't help. I didn't help her. I really didn't. So you talk about that, and there's just a whole nother world about what happens to these girls.
Yeah.
And having a father, not having a father, but then having someone there that's not their father, and it just a series of things that could occur.
Right. I speak about my entire family dynamic, and so I talk about pretty extensively my father, my relationship with him, and how he was incarcerated for about 9 to 10 years. When I was a child. So during those pivotal moments, he wasn't there, which of course created a wedge with regard to our relationship when he came home. So, for me, we never really built a relationship. And subconsciously, and I say this in a book, subconsciously I longed for a father, never knowing I was longing for a father. And, that was definitely a point of contention for me. And I didn't realize I was looking for someone, a man, to fill that void that my father left. My father and I still don't have a perfect relationship by any means. But I think what comes out in the book is how we began the process of working toward healing within our own relationship. And so I share that, and it's a work in progress. It truly is. And, by no means do I proclaim to know everything in the book. I just speak my truths.
Right.
And my truths have been able to help a lot of people in a lot of different ways. There was a young lady who read the book and she said, Kristin, my dad was there, but my mom wasn't. And so she was able to relate in that way.
Okay.
So there's definitely a lot of information in there about fatherless daughters.
So where are you now regarding that relationship with your father?
Sheba is a work in progress. It really is. When so many years have gone by and those years have been missed, it's hard to kind of make up for lost time, right? And so I think we find ourselves in a place where we're trying to learn one another. Somebody said something very key, very pivotal to me. They said, you all can't start with the father-daughter relationship.
Right.
You need to just start with learning one another, getting to know one another. So I think that's kind of where our baseline is at this point. He learning me learning him, and then kind of taking it from there. I'm one of those people, I like to clear up the past. I don't like to sweep things under the rug.
Right.
So that's important for me. So I think we have a lot of work to do with regard to clearing up the past.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's what led you to your platform for the women in depression.
Yeah, that, and really the relationship was the biggest piece, the loss of the relationship. Because I legitimately could not figure out how to get myself together. And, I attempted suicide twice. And so, at that point, I said, well, surely I'm not the only one going through this, when I had moments of clarity. And so when I learned how to cope and when I learned how to get myself to a place where I was functioning, because I was not functioning for a very long time, I wanted to share those secrets with other women. And so I've done workshops and speaking engagements and things of that nature that have really helped a lot of women. And so I'm very, very proud of that. So when you ask me what my passion was, my passion is educating, but educating about topics that are important to me, like depression.
Right.
Because that almost claimed my life. And so I've met a lot of women whose lives that it has almost claimed as well. And so I definitely want to make sure that I do my part and kind of reach back and help those who are still struggling and let them know that there's definitely hope and that they can kind of get to a place where they are restored.
So could you just tell us about a time when you had to explain this to someone?
In the book, I was writing and I was referencing a time where I was in the hospital. And I'm sitting there trying to figure out, like, how can I explain what depression feels like, right? Because I know what it feels like, but I was having a really hard time conveying through words what it feels like because it's almost indescribable. And so I think that was the hardest time that I had to outwardly express or explain what depression felt like. So what I decided to do was to paint a picture through words.
Okay.
So I kind of told all my business, right? So, I'm like, and people think, I think people look at my life and they think I kind of have it all together. Mm-hmm. And I wanted people to know that I did not have it all together. So I speak about it and I say, Miss Has It All Together was literally falling apart. I tell you that I was unbathed. I tell you that my hair wasn't combed. I tell you that I wouldn't get out of bed for days. I tell you that I would sit on the floor in the corner in the dark and rock back and forth and hum. And everything would kind of be black. There would be no light. Head bowed. I get really descriptive.
Okay.
So that people can know, so that the picture is painted, so that people can see what it really looks like.
Okay.
And that was the most difficult part about telling this story, was trying to figure out how to explain what depression felt like.
And and I'm glad we're going to pause here because I want everyone to see this video because this is a diva right here.
Thank you.
She's a diva. She is absolutely beautiful. I love her spirit. She's just beautiful to me. And for someone to say they didn't bathe, they rocked back and forth, sat in the dark.
That was a mess.
Didn't comb her hair.
Yeah.
I mean, just imagine, this is not uncommon. So take a look at this video.
Hey rock stars and bombshells. There's something really serious that I want to talk to you about today and bring to your attention. I want to talk about the writer Erica Kennedy. She was young, she was beautiful, and she was extremely talented. She was the author of the best-selling novels Bling and Feminista. She attended Sarah Lawrence, as did I, but I didn't meet her there. I met her years later when I was promoting my debut novel, Dare, and we were at a reading series of a mutual friend, Rachel Kramer Bussell. Erica got up and read, and she was hilarious. She was a bright spark, and she lit up the entire room. Afterward, I spoke to her about honoring her at Abiola's Kiss and Tell Live in Manhattan, a monthly reading series that I was hosting at the time. And Erica said, well, didn't you see what a terrible job I did at that other series? And she was completely oblivious and unaware of the fact of how talented and funny and amusing she was. And I told her that, and told her that when we met at that event that I was in fact starstruck at being in her presence. But she just couldn't see it. Like so many talented women, she didn't know the light that she was. She's no longer on this planet with us, and I'm sorry that I didn't get a chance to honor her in that series. But I feel as though I can honor her memory and honor you by talking about depression, suicide, and mental illness, particularly in the African American community and communities of color, but across the board. Women and mental illness has been a cause that I've advocated for some time. A few years ago, I directed an award-winning documentary named Knives in My Throat. You can find it at abiolatv.com or just by Googling it. I followed a year in the life of a young, beautiful, and gifted writer, another woman, black woman, who was dealing with these issues on top of bipolar disorder and family of origin issues. She was also suicidal and felt like she was alone. I want to just talk to you and just let you know that you are not alone. If you are depressed, if you are sad, if you are going through something, talk to someone. If you feel like you can't talk to the people in your life or you've talked their ears off, get help. Most churches or cultural centers will point you in the direction or have some sort of support group or some kind of counselor. You can Google, there are all kinds of helplines. You can get in touch with me through abiolatv.com and I can point you in the right direction of some places where you can get help. It's important to know that you are not alone, because the myth of the strong black woman is killing us. Literally, because you feel like you have to live up to this ideal and society tells you that you're already angry or crazy, so who wants to be the angry or crazy black woman? No, the strong black woman is a myth. Yes, we are strong at times, but no, there's not just one way to react. F basketball wives in these shows that we watch. It's not that when you're sad or depressed that you just fly off the handle and you're angry and you're whatever and it's okay to have that kind of madness going on in your life. Whatever you are dealing with, you are not alone. Know that. And we need you here on this planet. You were brought here for a purpose. And until your creator decides to take you home, that purpose is not fulfilled. Okay? So I would love for you to leave me comments, leave me stories of your own struggles or people that you know that have dealt with anything from anxiety to bipolar disorder to mental illness. I'll be making another video at another point to talk to you about, you know, the struggles that I've faced with body image and food. It's important that we have these conversations, okay? So I'm going to share with you a suicide hotline, okay? This is really, really important. If you feel like you don't have anywhere to turn, please call 1-800-273-8255. Okay, that number is here on the screen. Again, it's 1-800-273-8255. All right? Leave me a thumbs up if you are in it for your mental health. All right? No one has told you today, I love you deeply and completely. All right, my friends.
I definitely give her a thumbs up because you are not alone. Everyone's here with you. We have an ear waiting to hear you. You're not alone. And that myth of the strong black woman, I mean, that's, you know, how the men, the Latino men have machismo. Well, we have that same kind of where we have to be strong all the time. We can handle anything. We can't be broken when we're shattered inside.
Yeah. I think, you know, my mom used to tell me, she said, Kristin, you're a palm tree. She said, palm trees can weather the storm. You know, they're in these tropical climates. It gets really, really hot. You know, they, you know, endure all of the tumultuous weather from the seasons. They bend, but they never break. And so she wanted me to really hold true to that saying. I may bend a little bit, but I will never break. And so I would always tell myself that when I was on the bathroom floor or, you know, thinking about taking my life, I would really try to remind myself that I was a palm tree. And I think for some of us, if we've had any level of success in our life, be it education, be it career, family, whatever it is that we define success, right? It's hard to face the fact or admit that you're depressed. Because it's like a weakness. You think to yourself, I should be able to get over it. But one thing I want to mention is that depression is not sadness. Right?
There's a difference.
The two are not the same. You know, there's normal degrees of sadness, and we all will experience those. You know, someone passes away, the loss of a relationship, the loss of a job. You know, there's normal degrees of sadness, and that's okay. Depression is, I tell people all the time, it's so much bigger than I'm sad or I'm not having a good day.
Right.
It's debilitating. It's I can't get out of bed because of X, right? Or because of Y, you know? And I think that's important to note. Sometimes people kind of throw around that word a bit loosely to me. And, you know, that's a point of contention for me. You know, I really want people to use those words carefully because depression has taken the lives of so many amazing people. And so we want to be very careful with how we use that word.
Right, because most think it's synonymous.
Yeah, and it's not.
It's not.
And really, and when you get to a good place, when you come out of you know, depression and the throes of it, you're able to see a lot more clearly that there are normal degrees of sadness, and it's okay to be sad sometimes when certain things happen. And it's also good to remember that everybody internalizes things very differently. So that same relationship that threw me for a loop, you may have been able to completely move on from it. You know, one thing I struggled with was, this isn't something that should break me. This isn't something that should have me depressed. Right? You know, you shouldn't be depressed because of something this small. It should take something a lot bigger. But I was in the hospital once, and I was talking to a woman that was also there, and she was there because she lost her job, and she had, you know, been on her job over 20 years. And so to some people, they may have said, well, you know, why would you be depressed over losing a job? Why would you have to go to the psych ward over losing your job?
Wow.
But what I learned from that, and what was very powerful for me, was that everybody has their own threshold. Right? And so what you may be able to tolerate, someone else may not be able to tolerate. What may break you may not break the next person, and vice versa. And so that was a very great moment of clarity for me, because it allowed me to accept my own truths, right? It allowed me to be comfortable with the fact that someone didn't die in a major car accident. Right? And I lost everything, and that's why I'm depressed. Because I think when we think depression, we think extreme.
Right.
Something extreme has to happen. But it allowed me to realize that, you know, nothing extreme has to happen. It just has to feel extreme for you.
Right.
And so I always tell people who are suffering with depression, don't beat yourself up over why you're depressed. Do you know what I mean?
I do. I
do. Accept your truth and learn how to cope with what it is that you're struggling with. And I think that's really, really important.
A lot of times it comes from others having or living up to expectations of family members, coworkers, husbands, wives, boyfriends, girlfriends. And that's where they turn inward, and it's almost like a self-destruction. Like, I'm not doing this and I'm not doing that. And I recall there was a situation that happened with my family, and I just separated myself from my family. And the first thing my mother did, she called me and she said, "Are you okay? Don't hurt yourself." And I looked at the phone and I said, don't hurt myself. That said so many things to me. It was like, maybe she doesn't think I'm strong enough to get through this storm. Or is something wrong with me because I'm not at that point where I want to? Mm-hmm. You know, I've had a friend of mine tell me, you know, Holly, you have a type of resilience to certain situations that most people would have committed suicide. And I sit there and I'm like, wow. And that's when I realized, and we're both mental health professionals, and I thought to myself, yeah, I need to put myself in someone else's shoes and see how I can help them. Mm-hmm. Because whatever that is I have, or how I'm able to deal with it, it needs to be bottled, and I need to pass it on some kind of way. Mm-hmm. Because it's scary to think that someone so beautiful like you, and like the young lady, would hurt themselves.
But you know what, too, Dr. Holly? I mean, when you think about depression, and I was clinically diagnosed, mm-hmm. right? And so when you go to the doctors, they'll explain to you and they'll tell you, you know, everybody's different. Everybody's genetic makeup is different. Mm-hmm. So depression can be hereditary. It's normally triggered by an event. And again, that event can be different for different people. But some doctors, if you get to the point where you're clinically diagnosed, they will tell you that it can be a chemical imbalance. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of like having schizophrenia or bipolar or cancer. You know, there's nothing you did per se to, you know, inflict this disease on yourself. You know, it is what it is, kind of thing. And so while you may not be susceptible to that particular disease, that doesn't mean that the next person won't be. Yeah, and I was on medication for a very long time, you know, to regulate my mood and to mm-hmm. stabilize my mood. And so at that point in my life, had you come in and tried to help me understand whatever it is that you use to get through those difficult times, that wouldn't have worked for me. Because I just was not able to really process much of anything. You know, some of the medications can be so strong that, you know, there was a time I could not read and comprehend. And I'm an educator. So you can imagine what that did to my psyche, you know. And luckily I have an amazing support system. So my mom is like, you have to get off of this medicine. Mm-hmm. I never forget, I was driving home. Well, I wasn't driving. My mom had picked me up from the hospital. I was in the hospital again. And she was driving us to her house. But my bearings were off. I could not remember. I couldn't really process rapidly. And I said, Mom, where are we going? And she said, we're going to my house. And I said, well, how do we get to your house? And she just looked. She
didn't understand.
And she had no comprehension of how her daughter could not remember how to get to her house. But it was the medicine, mm-hmm. you know. And I say that to say, you know, back to my original point about some people are more susceptible to certain diseases than others, such as depression, mm-hmm. you know. And we as a community have to stop putting depression off as if it's not a real and legitimate illness. Mm-hmm. We have a tendency to do that with things that we can't see. Right? You can't see into people's mind. So if I call off of work because I'm having a depressive episode, mm-hmm. people don't want to hear that. But if I call off of work because I broke my leg and I needed to get treated and I come back with crutches, then they can see the physical manifestation of my pain. Right. But when I come back to work after a month because I was out due to a depressive breakdown, people are kind of like, what's really wrong with exactly. Yeah. Now, in my case, my medicine was so strong that I looked a little loopy. Wow. So when I went back to work, it was a situation where, you know, people were kind of whispering, what's wrong with her? Mm-hmm. Why does she look that way? Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that I looked spacey. Mm-hmm. You know, I thought that I looked quite normal, but I didn't look quite normal. You know, so it was a long process. And so with the book, with, you know, everything that I have going on, it's very easy for me to share and talk about it because it was such a huge part of my life, very impactful. Mm-hmm. And so I would be remiss if I didn't take the time to speak to other women about it, to speak to men about it, you know, and there are some things in my workshop that I do share, what you can do to kind of help someone along. And what you're talking about, I like to think about it as those cognitive distortions. And, a lot of times when you're depressed, you create these cognitive distortions in your mind.
You do.
These exaggerated ideas of negativity that are not true. And we live in those. And so it becomes, I'm not attractive. And it goes to, I'm horrible. And I talk about challenging those. And that's my way of coping. And that's what I impart on other people. And it's a whole workshop that I do about it. And it's really amazing. And I give people scenarios.
Right.
And then I have them go through their own scenarios. So.
And I like that because I'm one of those people that I was a psych major because I said, well, should I do psych, bio? Because I just don't like the medication thing. Till today, I won't take aspirin. I'll drink water till my headache go away.
Really?
Oh yeah. I'm very holistic.
Okay.
So that's why I wanted to challenge the whole medicine thing, and with depression, with bipolar, with your ADHD. Very big because they give all those medications all the time. So and do holistic type things.
Now I will say some people need it.
Well, that's true,
And
but I want to push it. Well, up next, I hurt, therefore I'm a dumping ground after these messages.
Are you or someone you know suffering from stress, anxiety, or depression? Have you experienced feelings of frustration due to lack of family and/or career support? Let's talk. Relationship issues got you down? Get the help you need. Contact Dr. Sheba Holly, mental health advisor and life coach, at clarity.fm/Dr. Sheba Holly. That's DrShebaHolly. If confidentiality, comfort, and convenience is important to you, guidance is provided on your terms. You deserve peace of mind. Contact Dr. Sheba Holly, mental health advisor and life coach, at clarity.fm/Dr. Sheba Holly. That's DrShebaHolly. Get answers now. Make your appointment today. Let's talk. Clarity.fm/Dr. Sheba Holly. That's DrShebaHolly.
And we're back. We have Kristin Mitchell here, and I'm Dr. Sheba Holly, and you're on with Talks with Sheba. And I just want to let you know that, again, women of color, help is there. You're not alone. And it states here, depression out of the shadows. It says that African American women manifest physical illness when they're depressed. Asian American and Pacific Islanders, they're unlikely, again, just like African Americans, to not sought help. Okay, they don't trust or believe in the fact that they can talk to someone and that it would actually help. Latinos are at high risk also, and American Indian and Alaska natives. So there's a lot of things that happens too, and you want to know what this looks like because you want to know the signs for your young girls. And this is a time when they're developing, and your young women that's coming out of college trying to find themselves. What do they do? Who do they turn to? Who can they talk to? Sometimes they feel a little silly about their thoughts, but challenge that. Let them know you're listening. You're there to actually hear what they have to say. Kristin, there's things that women do when they're depressed, and a lot of it is promiscuity.
Yeah.
And it's like they don't value themselves. And we have to really push the fact that they're important. The self-esteem takes a toll.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I talk about that in the book. And to one of those statistics, absolutely true. When I was in the throes of depression, I was sick all the time. Every other month I was sick with something. It's almost like your body has no resistance. you become extremely weak for some reason. So I thought that was a very interesting statistic, and one that I found to be true for myself. But with regard to the promiscuity, I talk about that a lot, and He Wasn't My Daddy, and I talk about times where I was very promiscuous. There were times where I wanted to have sex to fulfill a void.
Right.
All right. Not necessarily because I just wanted to have sex, but because I wanted that
Loving feeling.
Yeah, that sense of belonging. And it could be very, very dangerous, but I talk about in the book, I caution people when they're reading not to say that, it's not okay to be a sexual person because, some of us are sexual people by nature, but really paying attention to the reasons why. At this point in my life, I always ask myself, why? Kristin, why are you doing this? And if it has anything to do with, I don't feel good about myself, I feel like I'm less than, I'm searching for something, then that's when to kind of step back and reevaluate the decisions that you're intending on making, right? But if you're doing something because you just genuinely want to do it, then that's a different thing. But when I speak about sex in the book, there's a chapter called Swinging. I think it's chapter 8. And so I talk about my participation in that lifestyle. And I talk about how a lot of
the swingers
times,
lifestyle.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I talk about how a lot of times it was definitely to fill a void.
Wow.
I'm lonely. I want a man to love me. And even though I know that I'm not going to get love in that situation, I can pretend. I can escape. It's almost like a drug.
Okay.
I would imagine people who are substance abuse users are attempting to escape from some reality. And that was kind of what this was for me. And so I would put myself in that place and in another frame of mind to escape whatever it was that I was feeling at that time.
Now, when you were in these swinger situations, did you have a partner at the time, or were you already separated from that relationship?
I was already separated from that relationship.
Okay.
Yeah. After that relationship ended, things kind of started
spiraling
for me. Yeah. And that was my trigger. When I would talk to my doctor about it, I would say, I don't understand. And she would say, Kristin, we all have triggers, and that was your trigger.
Right.
I start the swinging chapter with a little quote, and I said, there's a powerful lesson to be learned here. If you don't fix those broken pieces and continue to pile shit on top of shit, the outcome can be deadly or damn near close to it. And that's how I opened that chapter. And so I kind of chronicle the reader through, how I started in that lifestyle, where it led me, what some of the emotions were that I felt during those times. There's a few explicit scenes in there too, but, I really, really chronicle the reader through that because I want women to understand some of the negative decisions that we can make as a result of low self-esteem.
And, that's just interesting because your persona.
Oh, yeah.
The teacher.
Yeah.
What level do you teach?
High school.
High school.
Yep.
So here it is. I'm also an educator. We have this thing about how we uphold.
Yeah.
You can't, we as teachers, summertime, we get a part-time job. We go work at the, a restaurant or after school program. We can't be strippers.
Yeah.
Even though we would make some money.
Yeah.
It would like cross your mind. It was like, I can pay off that car.
That student loan, right?
But it's like being a teacher and coming out with, this is so revealing.
Very.
That, look, this is what I did.
Yeah.
I am human. I am transparent.
Mm-hmm. But I talk about it from the standpoint of some of those risk factors, right? It's a risk factor thing. It's, if you don't take care of yourself, if you don't learn to love yourself, these are some of the things or some of the traps that you can fall into. If you're not careful with how you deal and how you cope with loss or how you cope with negative feelings about self or your perception about self. And these are some of the things that you can fall into. Now, this is no attack on people who enjoy this lifestyle.
Oh, no. No.
But this was more so my lens as to that question, why? Kristin, why are you doing this? So I want to make that very clear. It's definitely not an attack on people who enjoy that lifestyle because that's just what they enjoy to do for whatever reason. I was speaking about it from my perspective and from, the things that I suffered with.
And not only that, being in that lifestyle, you're in control.
Yes.
You felt like you were in control.
Yes.
I called the shots.
Yeah. And, I don't have to worry about anyone walking away from me.
I do that.
Yeah. And at that time, I had a really big thing with rejection and feeling rejected and feeling abandoned. And so at first, I felt abandoned by my biological father, but I didn't realize I felt abandoned by him. In my mind, he was incarcerated, and so he wasn't there because he couldn't be there.
Right.
But then when he came home and he still wasn't there, it's like, okay, and then when the relationship ended, I felt another sense of abandonment. With this, I didn't feel any abandonment. I didn't feel like somebody didn't want me or that I wasn't good enough to be wanted. And so a lot of my deeper rooted issues came from feeling as if I was not good enough. I was less than. And that was that cognitive distortion.
Right.
And I had to learn and teach myself how to challenge that. And so I came up with this whole, program to challenge those cognitive distortions. And myself and a psychologist worked together to kind of come up with it. And it has been really, really helpful and really effective with a lot of people that we've kind of worked with it on. So.
And I like the way you switched it around. You're like, okay, I can use this situation to educate others. And you stood up. And you're standing out.
Thank you.
You're definitely standing out because it takes a lot to reveal this about yourself, because a lot of times we don't even want to reveal it to ourselves. When we look in the mirror, you ever catch yourself squinting? It's like, it's like you look better. you just look better. And it also that tells a lot, because there's something else, even if it's not the physical view, it's the inner view, what you don't see, that you're actually squinting.
But it's so funny because, and people say all the time, there was just a comment on Facebook that somebody left and she said, you're so open, or I'm glad you're so open, or something to that degree. And I always laugh when I hear that comment because I hear it all the time. And I laugh when I do because I think it's not a big deal for me. I'm an open book. So when other people say, you're so brave, you told so much about yourself, I never care, I'm not that type. I'm probably I'm probably too honest, like too open. Sometimes I have a friend, Cherie, and she calls me Tanya. She calls me take it there, Tanya. She said, you always take it there. Because I will tell you you don't even have to ask. And I'm not a private person, or I'm not a secretive person by nature. So for me to write this book was not challenging in terms of me revealing all of my business. Now, sometimes when I'm in a workshop and I'm teaching because I teach from the book. Okay. So sometimes when I'm reading certain excerpts, like the sex scenes, like from that swinging chapter. Yes. I'm reading out loud to the participants, and I'm like, oh, Kristin.
You're like, did she do that?
Did I really do,
did I do that?
Outside of that, I mean, because one thing I have learned, we all have something with us. Yes. And that's what I do know. And if I can use this as a platform to help, I met so many women who suffer from depression. You'd be surprised. I mean, you wouldn't be surprised because you're in the mental health field, but I've met so many women. And when I tell you, when I talk to them and I share with them, they are like, okay, Kristin, even if for that 5 minutes they feel like they can do it, I'm good with that. Because sometimes just catching a 5-minute break and feeling like you can do it can lead you to a 10-minute break and then a 15-minute break. And so that's kind of how I look at it. I say in the book, time and feelings are fleeting. And so I was talking to a young girl once, and she was a cutter. Okay. And so for those who don't know what a cutter is, she would cut herself physically, a way of kind of relieving pain, right? Or feeling pain to kind of cover up the internal pain. And so I asked her, I said, are there any periods that you feel like things will be okay? Even after you cut. And she said, yeah. I said, okay, without cutting, what I want you to realize is that time and feelings are fleeting. So those 10 minutes that you feel horrible, those 10 minutes are going to pass. Right? And that minute that you feel good, hold on to that and realize that that minute will come again. And each time it'll get longer and longer and longer. I would have periods of happiness, right? And they would be short initially. And as time went on, as I got stronger and as I got better, as I got healthier, those minutes got longer. And I started to look forward to those minutes. And what it did for me is it made me realize that I shouldn't allow a temporary situation to create a permanent effect for me. So I shouldn't take my life, because certainly if I can have 5 minutes of happiness, I can have an hour of happiness. And then I can have a day of happiness.
There you go, and a year.
And that's how I started to challenge those cognitive distortions of things will always be horrible, right? So that worked for me. And then I share that in more depth and more detail, of course, with examples and things of that nature in workshops and in speaking engagements. So
that would be your Saved by the Bell series?
Yes. So Saved by the Bell is great. And it's a play on words, of course.
Of course. That was one of my favorite shows. But I'm 21.
Yes.
Yeah. Forever.
So I love that series because what it does is it takes all of the components of the book, all of the platforms, fatherless daughters, self-esteem, promiscuity, depression, and suicide, and it really kind of ties in, elements from the book, my personal experiences, and I share with women how to overcome and how to get through those difficult times. The one that's most successful or most popular is the session on mental health and self-esteem.
Okay.
And so many people can relate to it. So many women are like looking for a way to kind of uplift themselves and bring some positivity and light to their world. And so through those workshops, we talk about coping strategies. We talk about cognitive distortions. We talk about how low self-esteem leads to bad decision making. It can be bad decision making with money, with men, with career choice, with how you live your life on a day-to-day. And it's so funny when I do these workshops, some women don't even realize how the choices they make directly tie into how they feel about themselves.
Right.
And I give a Likert scale and I say, if you felt good about yourself, would you make this decision? Or based on how you are living at this current time, rate how you feel about yourself. And people are very honest. They may rate themselves a 3, which is the low end of the scale. And they may say, and then I'll ask them, what specific decisions are you making currently that let you know that you are 3 on the scale in terms of how you love and respect yourself? And they start pouring out all kinds of information. So it challenges them to hear out loud and to be honest about the negative and the detrimental decisions that they're making for themselves, in hopes that they will start to do something different, something better, something more fruitful.
It's about being comfortable in your skin.
Yeah.
I mean, even something small as when you're unhappy, going shopping and spending every last dime you have. That's you trying to fill a void. That's same as sex.
Yeah.
Same as drugs.
Yep.
Same thing. Same thing. Well, after these messages, we're going to hear more on how to heal.
You are now tuned in to Talks with Sheba with your host, Dr. Sheba Holly. We invite, excite, educate, and empower. Let's talk.
You're on with Dr. Sheba Holly and Kristin Mitchell on women and depression, women of color and depression, and how you are not alone. There is help out there for you. Kristin, you have a lot of things to promote. You have things coming up. I mean, what are you doing?
So I'm working on a huge event now that I can't speak much about, but look for it in the late summer. And it's going to be amazing. A really good friend of mine and business partner, we're partnering to do something phenomenal for women. So, and you, of course, are going to be a part of that. And that's going to be really exciting. Of course, the book is always available on my website, KristinLMitchell.com. Kristin with a K and an I, Kristin. And I have a t-shirt line. I have workshops.
Oh, wait a minute. You just mulled over the t-shirt line?
I never...
Girl.
Okay. So I have a t-shirt line, and
I love these t-shirts.
They're really, really cute. They are based on the themes from the book. So there's a fatherless daughter shirt. There's a the Fight Against Depression shirt, which is my personal favorite for obvious reasons. Mm-hmm. And there's a promiscuity shirt. My mom loves that one. It's this woman with an afro, and she's kind of like, saving herself, not necessarily for marriage, but just refusing to allow low self-esteem and negative thoughts about self to create a life of promiscuity for herself. So the shirts are really cool. They're online on my website. You can Google "He Wasn't My Daddy" and the website will come up, or you can Google my name and it'll come up. So it's all there and available. I do speaking engagements about any of these topics. So yeah, that's what I'm up to, and teaching my little heart out.
You're on break right now.
I'm on break right now, thank God. So I'm excited about being on break. But
good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. I'm just I'm really happy to have you on.
Thank you.
Being comfortable in your skin is very important, ladies.
Extremely.
It's very important. Love yourself. Take care of self, because if you don't,
nobody will.
No one. No one.
Yeah.
No one will. And it's just a reality, But Kristin, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. I always have fun with you.
Oh.
I always have fun with you. We have the best talks. I told people today, I said, you guys should listen to our talks because we have really good talks, and I love it. I'm always available to come on your show.
Really. Pick up the book. She is transparent. I'm excited for you to learn and live her life. Just go through, and it's chronicled in the book, and you can see that, again, you're not by yourself. Again, Kristin, your website is www.Kristin with a K, KRISTINL Mitchell.com. You can get the book, the t-shirts. You can sign up for the website, not the workshops.
Yep.
You can sign up for the workshops and just heal and know that we are all sisters, no matter what color we are.
Thank you.
We're all sisters. Well, it's a wrap for us tonight. I want to thank all of you for joining us on this marvelous Monday. If you have any questions or comments, just call me at 866-671-4344. Email me at sheba@talkswithsheba.tv. You can tweet me. You can Instagram me. Bottom line, I want to hear from you. And remember, work like you don't need the money, love like you've never been hurt, and dance like nobody's looking. We'll talk later.
Talks with Sheba. Be empowered.